Thank you, Carl. People often ask me what a club is for, and I think what you're organising for that guy is what a club is for. And I'm very proud to be here tonight to hear you doing something. It must be great to hear for him. And if you would like an Elan workshop manual, we'll happily send you one. I mean that. Now, the biggest problem I have this evening is that I speak English and you speak English, but my English is different from your English. So if ever you don't understand what I'm saying, just please say, what the hell do you mean? Now, I'd like to thank Steve, who's been our host while Margaret and I have been here. He's really looked after us very well indeed, even lent us his car. We decided not to take it down into Chicago, because we may have had to blame the other guy. But thank you very much, Steve and your wife, for looking after us and giving us dinner tonight and being so friendly. We English, you know, we keep ourselves to ourselves, and somebody once said, well, if you slap an Englishman round the face, what does he do? Well, he turns the other cheek. And if you slap the other cheek, what does he do? He'll kill you. But we do like to keep ourselves to ourselves, and I learned many years ago, travelling backwards and forwards across the Atlantic, that the unfortunate person was the person who sat down and found themselves with a very gregarious American woman who would say, hi, my name's Mary, I come from Wisconsin, where are you from? And then you would get 8 hours of her grandchildren, her education, why she was in therapy. And I developed a method of getting over that. I would go to the bookstore at London Airport and buy any newspaper in Arabic and sit there reading. I'm here because I've got Lotus in my blood, and it's a pleasure always to be back with the family of Lotus owners worldwide. Interesting how many of you are, the new members are Esprit owners. We're finding the same in England. The interesting thing also is that, and I don't think it's just me, we have got areas in Club Lotus in England with 400 members. We can't get 37 to an evening. We only get 27 if I'm going to give a talk. So Lotus today is a vibrant, thriving company owned by a rather secretive Malaysian operation, probably the Malaysian government, which is called Hicom Proton. Hicom Proton, all these third world or developing tiger economies realise that you have to have, be in the motor industry, have to have a World Cup football team and have to have a Grand Prix to actually rank against America and Europe. So Hicom Proton own Lotus. The interesting thing for me is they also own Petronas. And Petronas owns the Sauber Grand Prix team. So we could yet see Hicom Proton taking over Sauber completely and then bringing back the name Lotus. They can't bring the name Team Lotus back because David Hunt's stolen that and run away with it. And they can't get it back. But Lotus Cars today is probably now the world's leading automobile design, development and high-tech consultancy. The world's leading. They do more work than Porsche. They reckon that over 50% of all internal combustion engines running by next year will have some Lotus input. Lotus don't tell us very often who they're working for. But when you drive into the factory and Aston Martin's coming out all covered in black tape, you know they're working for Aston Martin. And when you see a great big Volvo bus hurtling around the circuit with active suspension, you know they're working for Volvo. So we know, living in the area, they're doing a lot of work all over the world. They bought a company at Coventry to be more involved in steel unitary body car construction. They've opened up over here with the research and development. So they're really going places. I don't expect them to be sold back to General Motors. 90% of their income and their profit is from research and development. The car company now, and I suggested this to them and so did other people, a few years ago Lotus Engineering went out to see, shall we say, Chrysler, and said, hi, look what we can do. We've got a car called the Esprit, which doesn't have central locking, doesn't have fuel injection. and we have a car called the M100 Elan that we stopped making because it was too expensive. Today, Lotus Engineering can walk in and say, here's a car we developed recently, the Lotus Elise, on target, on time, on budget. No car in the history of the motor industry has ever had so many accolades and so many trophies and so many awards. And then we also define this little itty-bitty V8 with twin turbos. So this is what we can do for you, Mr. Client. So now they're showcasing to clients all over the world just what they can do. And that started, I'm rather proud to say, with I sat at the board meeting with Colin and said, Colin, why don't we sell what we do best? And he said, you mean debt management? The most amazing double misunderstanding was the DeLorean project. John DeLorean came to us with a bit of doggy-do, a piece of crap covered in silver paper that he said was a prototype car. In 18 months, Lotus engineered, developed, designed, type-approved, detoxed, and helped put into production the DeLorean car. 18 months from cock-up to run out, which was and that achievement by Lotus Engineering went around the whole world motor industry. My God, we never thought they'd do that. The fact that there was some slight financial impropriety it's just one of those things. John DeLorean got the Jesus and got off. Colin Chapman dropped down dead, and that left Fred Bushell, our wonderful teddy bear managing director. Fred, who, super guy, I love him to this day, and we're still very good friends. But the fact the judge said that he was the ringleader, he was the Mr. Big, he was the brains behind the DeLorean fiasco. But the fact still remains that out of the DeLorean fiasco and all the accusations and all the Bible thumping, the reputation of Lotus's development engineers stood proud, and manufacturers have been coming to Lotus ever since for what Lotus does best. Now what Lotus does best is they do it quicker, they do it for less, and they do it better, and they do it with elegance. Now that is the old Chapman tradition, and it applies today, that they do a better job for less. You try and get into a major corporation. You couldn't put the Elise through Ford Motor Company. You couldn't put it through almost any major manufacturer. There'd be so many committees against it, and finally the legal department will give it a thumbs down. No, contingent liability can't do that. So therefore, in whatever it was, I went to Colin and the board with his proposal that we should get into this business, and we produced a brochure called Lotus Total Technology. And just as we started pushing this around the industry, the DeLorean business blew up, and we got all the business we wanted anyway. So it was a good start, but that was that. But long before then, while I was with Ford Motor Company, enjoying life, I'd done several assignments and attachments to various other companies, and I got a call to Sir Patrick Ennis's office, and he said, being Irish, if you're after applying for the job of Lotus Sales Director, you'll be after getting it. He spoke a bit better in Irish than that, because he had a night to him. The fact was, I had to go through the farce of cutting an advertisement out of a magazine, writing and applying for the job. And I was racing in Sicily, so I was a week late coming for an appointment. And I arrived there. If you ever want to know the status of a company, find a reason to sit in reception for 30 minutes. You will overhear things you would not believe. I found this out years later as a consultant, and I've got up and walked out. You hear one person say, oh no, the signatures on the company checks are both on holiday, you better come back next week. Some guy hammering and banging on the counter, I'm not going to, I get paid. The door opens and a man is thrown down the stairs and they shout, you're fired, get out. So you begin to get a feeling what this company's all about. Well, I sat downstairs at Lotus, and the first thing I heard was, bloody Sterling Moss is suing us. And I forget what that was about. And then various people came and went. Then the phone rang, and the receptionist, who worked for Lotus Cars Limited, said, Lotus Motors? Yes, oh, he's in the meeting. Mr. Bushell, Mr. Chapman, no, they're not away, they're away for a week at least, and I'm supposed to see them. So then Fred Bushell comes downstairs, go upstairs, have a meeting, there's a contract already on the table, he signs it, I sign it, and basically it was that I, Graham Arnold, would introduce conventional marketing practices at Lotus, also good marketing practices. But as we walked down the stairs, Colin put his arm around my shoulder and said, good to have you aboard. And I thought, hang on, because I'll tell you why in a minute. He then said, that doesn't mean we've got to stop selling cars direct from the factory, does it? I said, well, of course it does. And Mike Costin, who I'd known for years, who went off to Fort Cosworth, who was with us at Lotus, and I knew him from earlier days, Mike Costin said, the day Colin Chapman puts his arm around you, you're out. But I first met Colin, but I would point out, I'm on very dangerous ground here. I have no credibility because I work for Firestone and Ford. And I really have a slight problem with both of those. Well, I was with Firestone and I realised that Lotus was on my patch. So I went in and had a word with John Standen, the chief buyer. This was a cynical joke of Colin's. John Standen had a parts department like this in which he worked. It was in the roof. John Standen was 6'2", and the roof was 5'4". And John was always walking around. But I was told if I could come back with a tyre of the new Lotus P100 cable stitch pattern, Mr. Chapman would like to look at it with a view to putting it on a new car. Go back to Brentford, the big Firestone factory, pick up a 480x13, I wouldn't put on a bike. Pick up a 480x13 P100 tyre, which we were supplying in large quantities to the caravan manufacturer. Went back to Hornsey, and Mr. Chapman came out, then was called away to talk to BRM. I thought that was either bullshit or very well done. Came back and I gave him the tyre, and he said, yeah, great tread, that's really wonderful. But he said, it's too heavy. And I thought, well, you can only cut holes in the side of a tyre to make it. So I thought, well, I think that's probably Chapman's answer to everything. I'm sure if you gave him the throttle cable, he said, too heavy. So I arranged to come back. I said, see what our people can do. They're very good in development. So I came back 2 weeks later, but I had rehearsed giving them the tyre. This is light. You know how you know in Bali where a 120-pound male picks a 300-pound woman up and throws her around like she's a shuttlecock. Well, I said, Mr. Chapman, here is this tyre, we've managed to make it lighter, how about it? And he said, that's better. They ordered some. Now, repeat, they ordered some. Never paid for them. Because it was soon discovered, because he took me up to Montague Road, Edmonton, and showed me the Elite as it was then in Clayform. It's for this car. 100 horsepower, 4.8-inch tyre, on a normal tread, it won't last long. They lasted about 3,000 miles. So Chapman refused to pay for them. We got them in the end, got the money in the end. But they went over to Michelin X, which in fact did a far better job on the Elite than we could ever have done. But what I learned from that was, and what I learned when I got to Lotus, was this incredible situation called cash flow management. When I was at Ford Motor Company, when a new supplier came along, in came his invoice, we threw it away. In came the statement, we put a stamp on it, to what does this refer? In came the letter, what is your purchase number? And we could keep a supplier, unless we really needed what he was making, we could keep a supplier waiting 6 months before we even acknowledged we owed him anything. So therefore it didn't even go in the balance sheet as owing. So, I mean, we used to have the same with our taxes. But the main thing was that in those days there wasn't much difference between the way Ford handled their cash and Lotus. The only difference was Ford had some